So today we're going to talk about a sensitive topic, and we're going to kind of try to explain why a lot of boxers and MMA fighters come from rough backgrounds and grow up poor, end up living, living in a fighter's world.
And when you look at the fight life itself, it's something that's very rough. There's a lot of injuries, a lot of tough things that could happen during training camps. Not just injuries itself, but the life that goes on, besides combat sports itself, family issues and everything sometimes, even the times where you're like separated from, I guess, society because of the fact that you have to do training camp in some other place, or you're locked up in Big Bear, or crazy stuff like that. When you're a fighter, you have to go through strict training, and you miss a lot of, I guess, birthdays, weddings, and events that are important to you. And so those sacrifices themselves are nothing compared to the life that some of these fighters and people grew up in. If you guys ever pay close attention to a lot of boxing stories, most of these guys are coming from rough backgrounds because of the fact that they simply just couldn't find another way out. So I think one of the reasons why people, especially from poor backgrounds, join combat sports is for the fact that since they've been fighting their whole life in the streets or fighting for their life itself, they rather put all that energy and power and, I guess, sometimes animosity towards the sport, and try to make something out of themselves to try to get out of that poverty. And I think that's what drives people the most, because if all the time you're fighting for something and when in reality you're just a hamster on the wheel not chasing anything, then you want to be able to fight for, I guess, title or money or whatever gives you that motivation.
Yeah, and it's kind of attracts a lot of people from these areas because they're, like he said, they're already fighting in the streets, and if they could get paid to fight, and it's a win-win for them, something to do all the time, and something that they can use to get out of these the rough neighborhoods that they're in. In MMA and boxing, it's a bit different because in MMA, a lot more of the fighters are actually college educated compared to boxing, because a lot of them come from the collegiate wrestling programs. But most common in MMA is Brazilians coming from the favelas, and that's kind of the most common rough rags to riches story that we hear in MMA. Some kid in the favelas of Rio or Sao Paulo training jiu-jitsu in a garage and in a small gym, and then eventually making it to the world championship. That's kind of one of the most common and the most liked stories in MMA. In boxing's a little different, because in boxing, since it's only one discipline, they're basically, when they're fighting, they're boxing, they're street boxing. They're already doing the sport that they're fighting professionally at. And so in MMA, they have to learn a bunch of other martial arts. So that's why not many people from poor neighborhoods are attracted to MMA, because you have to pay for your karate membership, your boxing, your taekwondo, your kickboxing, your jiu-jitsu, and it can be very expensive. That's why people of rough neighborhoods kind of gravitate towards boxing, because it's only one discipline, and usually it's cheaper to get a boxing membership than to get an MMA membership, generally.
Yeah, and then when you look at some of the people that are from these rough neighborhoods, sometimes it's their only escape. That's their only way out. And to be fighting on the street, like you said, might as well get paid for it. Like, why put your health on the line, for no reason? If you could get paid for it, might as well just do it. And I think one time I remember I kind of got into a little argument with some chick that was saying that she was tired that all the boxers tell the same stories. But what other way do they have out? If I had money myself, and if my kid wanted to box professionally, in my honest opinion, I'll be really honest here with you guys, I wouldn't want him to box. If you have the money, you might as well, learn something differently. Get an education, go learn and do marketing or something that's more, something that's a little bit more safe. But like you said, these guys don't have any other way out. Tough environment create tough men, and if they have to put their body through training regimens, nutrition, and make these little small sacrifices that will get them out of the hood, then they will do it, without a doubt.
You said, tough environments create tough people, and that's why you see a lot of these tough people grow up in tough environments kind of make it, because they need that motivation. There's something in them that is not in someone that's grew up not privileged, but didn't grow up the same way. People who have been in those rough environments have seen and done things that most people can't imagine. Growing up in Watts, South Central, and the favelas of Rio de Janeiro, parts of Mexico. Some of these areas have cultures that many people can't even fathom. People like from the suburbs are less likely to become great MMA or boxing fighters because they grew up privileged and they lack the motivation and that it's like there's something in these people growing up in rough areas that kind of it's their only hope. Like you said, it's their only hope and it's the only way out. People who grew up in the suburbs, they have money, they don't need to fight. It's a need versus want. And most people in the suburbs, they might want it, but they don't need it. So that will to fight isn't installed in them, and so that's why you see people from rough areas kind of become successful in combat sports.
And if you're in a more comfy environment, don't be afraid to also fight. These are our opinions. It's not always true because there have been fighters that actually had some money and end up being great fighters, or there's fighters that have actually been like second or third generation fighters that had money way before they actually fought themselves because of their grandparents and their parents. So don't be afraid to also jump into the combat sports world. This combat sports world is for everybody that wants to give it a shot. So that'll be all. So, yeah.
Yeah, thank you.